The many faces of the construction industry, building, expanding, and changing in cities and towns throughout the country. As a professional in the construction industry, you know how demanding your job can be. Big projects, quick deadlines, and days that often last after the sun's gone down. What you may not realize, though, is that heavy construction work can be a dangerous occupation. Often there's little or no room for error, so the safety of all workers is a priority. This video presentation is designed to alert construction workers like yourself about one group of serious hazards, being hit or struck by something while on the job. The goal of this presentation is twofold: to increase your awareness of these hazards and to inform you of ways to control or eliminate your exposure to struck by, hit by hazards during the course of everyday work. Did you know that 22% of all construction-related injuries and deaths are caused by being hit by an object? Moving vehicles, falling or swinging material, moving or rotating equipment, all are potential killers. Take a look around your job site. The dangers are everywhere. While your employer is doing everything possible to make each job site safe, it's not always possible to eliminate every potential hazard. One thing you can do to protect yourself is to use personal protective equipment. No matter where you are or what you're doing, personal protective equipment is your first line of defense against injury. Personal protective equipment is defined as all clothing and accessories designed to create a barrier against workplace hazards. Your employer uses OSHA guidelines as well as their own determination of possible workplace hazards to decide which type of personal protective equipment you're required to wear while on the job. Since many cases of struck by, hit by injuries are caused by falling objects, an essential piece of personal protective equipment is a hard hat. A study done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that in 83% of the cases where a worker received a head injury while on the job, that worker wasn't wearing protective headgear. Besides shielding you from falling objects, hard hats also offer protection should you accidentally hit your head on something stationary. Another recommended item of personal protective equipment is protective eyewear. The main cause of job-related eye injuries is objects striking a worker's eye, dust blowing in the wind, flying fragments from a grinder or saw, and machine fluids are some of the potential dangers. Safety glasses, goggles, and face shields are adequate types of eye protection. Once again, the situation you are working in will dictate which type of eye protection must be worn. It is also important to protect your feet from being hit or struck by an object. Steel-toed safety shoes, foot guards, boots, and leggings can help minimize your risk of foot and leg injuries. Wearing this type of safety equipment will also help minimize the risk of injury should your foot get squeezed between two objects or rolled over by a piece of machinery. Injuries can also occur when your upper body is exposed to hazards caused by impacts or splashes. To protect your torso, vests, jackets, aprons, coveralls, and full body suits are recommended. When used correctly, personal protective equipment can go a long way in preventing hit by, struck by injuries. However, being properly outfitted doesn't make you immune from the hazards. OSHA requires that your employer teach you how to recognize and avoid unsafe conditions on the job site. Be aware of your surroundings and of the location of your coworkers at all times. If you recognize conditions that are unsafe, take the necessary steps to correct the potentially hazardous situation. Anytime work is being done above ground level, workers on the ground are at risk of being struck by falling objects. Everything from the top of your feet to the top of your head can become a landing zone, so the importance of wearing proper personal protective equipment cannot be understated when it comes to protecting yourself from falling objects. When work is being done above ground level and the danger of something falling exists, special precautions should be taken to protect your coworkers. OSHA requires that barricades be placed around any area where falling objects could land. By restricting access to that particular location, you'll also be reducing the chance of an accident occurring. Make sure all barricades are sturdy and, if necessary, post a sign warning others of the potential danger of falling objects. Another method used to prevent objects from falling from higher levels includes the use of toe boards. A toe board is a protective barrier that will prevent materials and equipment from falling to lower levels. Whenever there's a danger of an object falling to the ground below, a toe board should be erected along the entire edge of the walking or working surface. Toe boards must rise at least 3 1/2 inches above the walking or working surface and should be able to withstand the impact of a 50-pound force striking it in any downward or outward direction. Should something be dropped, the toe board can stop it and prevent it from rolling over the edge. Guardrails are barriers erected to prevent you, the worker, from falling. However, guardrails can also be used to provide protection against falling objects. In instances where tools, equipment, or materials are piled higher than the top edge of the toe board, paneling or screening must be placed between the toe board and the mid-rail of the guardrail. The height of the object will determine whether the paneling or screening must extend to the top rail of the guardrail. If you've ever worked on or underneath scaffolding, you'll know the importance of using guardrails and toe boards on all open sides and ends. When people are working underneath or are required to pass under scaffolding, a wire mesh screen must be installed between the toe board and the guardrail. Any openings in the screen must be small enough to prevent objects from passing through and falling to the ground below. Canopies are also used as a form of protection from falling objects. The canopy must be strong enough so it won't collapse or be punctured when struck by a falling object. If dropping materials through a hole or skylight, the area onto which the material will fall must be enclosed by a barricade that is at least 42 inches high. The barricade must extend at least 6 feet from the edge of the opening above. Signs warning of the hazards of falling materials must also be posted. Other notes of etiquette when working above ground include carrying and storing rivets, bolts, and other loose pieces of material in a container. And never throw anything overboard. Someone passing below could be seriously injured if they find themselves in the path of a discarded object. Proper handling and storage of materials used on the job site can go a long way in preventing injuries caused after being struck or hit by an object. As with any task you're doing, while on the job site, materials handling and storage also requires you to wear proper personal protective equipment. Consult with your employer to determine which types of personal protective equipment you're required to wear when doing specific tasks. OSHA regulations state that whenever material is stored in tiers, it must be stacked, racked, blocked, interlocked, or otherwise secured to prevent sliding, falling, or collapse. When stacking bagged materials, step back the layers and cross-key the bags at least every 10 bags high. Brick should not be stacked more than 7 feet high. If a loose brick stack reaches a height of 4 feet, any additions to the stack must be tapered back 2 inches for every foot of height above the 4-foot level. When a stack of masonry blocks is higher than 6 feet, the stack must be tapered back 1/2 block for every tier above the 6-foot level. Lumber should be stacked so that it is stable and self-supporting. Do not pile lumber more than 16 feet high if it will be manually handled, 20 feet high otherwise. When stacking used lumber, make sure all nails are removed. Cylindrical materials, such as structural steel, poles, or pipe, should be stacked and blocked to prevent spreading unless these items are already securely placed in a rack. No matter what you're stacking, always keep aisles and passageways clear. This will ensure that people, as well as materials handling equipment, can move around in a safe and easy manner. If stacking or storing materials inside a building that is under construction, keep the pile at least 6 feet away from any hoistway or inside floor opening. If the material being stored is taller than the building's exterior wall, the pile must be at least 10 feet away from that wall. The construction of a masonry wall can also create potential struck or hit by hazards. Employee access should be strictly limited within an area that is 4 feet greater than the height of the wall to be constructed. Once the wall reaches a height of 8 feet, It should be braced or supported to prevent overturning or collapse. Care must also be taken when equipment is being used to hoist materials and supplies. Whenever loads are hoisted overhead, there is always the chance that something could roll off and fall to the ground. Always check the load before it's moved to make sure it's evenly distributed. Secure or remove any loose items. Always stay clear of loads about to be lifted as well as loads suspended above ground. Tag lines can be used to help control loads when hoisted. If using a tag line, make sure you always position yourself away from the load in a location where the equipment operator or signal person can see you. Using direct communication by radio is also an acceptable method of communication to use when hoisting a load. While you may think of a crane or backhoe making hoisting movements, these powerful machines also utilize a large swing radius when rotating. Accessible areas within the machine's swing radius must be barricaded to prevent workers from being struck or hit while walking or working nearby. Never store items such as water coolers or tools on the machine catwalks. In addition to heavy machinery, all motorized vehicles on a job site can present struck and hit by hazards. Take a look around the job site. How many dump trucks, front-end loaders, or pickups do you see? Many times, the operator of these vehicles sits high up in a cab. This restricts their ability to clearly see what's going on at ground level. So it's important that you stay out of the path of any piece of moving equipment or machinery. If you can't see the operator, chances are the operator can't see you. Before moving a vehicle or piece of equipment, a walk-around inspection should be done. Here you'll be looking for co-workers near or under the equipment. On a hot sunny day, the cool shadows underneath a piece of equipment can be inviting to a worker. However, never place yourself under any machine or vehicle unless you're performing maintenance. Before moving a vehicle or piece of equipment, test the brakes, horn, and backup alarm. The horn and backup alarm must be operational and loud enough to be heard above the surrounding noises found at the job site. Always coordinate vehicular movements with an observer who can signal when it's safe to move. Never operate any vehicle if your view is restricted. When working near a piece of moving machinery, keep your distance. Articulated equipment and other pieces using buckets, arms, and blades can cause a pinch hazard. When doing maintenance work on heavy machinery or equipment that has suspended or elevated parts, block or crib the area before beginning. Bulldozer and scraper blades, loader buckets, dump bodies, and similar types of equipment must either be completely lowered to the ground or blocked. The machine's controls should be in neutral, the motor should be turned off, and the brakes set unless the work being done requires otherwise. When parking vehicles or equipment, make sure the parking brake is set. Set the emergency brake and chock the wheels when parking on an incline. It's also a good idea to post signs, signals, or barricades on and around the job site, warning workers of potential hazards. These warnings must be visible at all times when work is being done in the area. If work is being done on or adjacent to streets or highways, and signs, signals, or barricades do not provide the necessary protection, flagmen or other appropriate traffic controls must be provided. When exposed to traffic on a roadway, always wear an orange reflective or high visibility vest. Ensuring your safety while on the job also extends to the hand and power tools you'll be using during the course of the day. It is important that you learn how to use all tools at your job site, not just power tools, so you can understand potential hazards and the ways in which they can be prevented. Wearing the proper personal protective equipment while using any tool is vital to your safety. Before using any tool, inspect it for loose or broken parts. Do not use a tool if it's been damaged. Saws and other cutting tools should always be sharp. Always follow manufacturer's instructions when using any tools. Screwdrivers aren't chisels and shouldn't be used as such. When using any tool, always direct it away from other employees working nearby. Keep any observers a safe distance away from the work area. Tools using wheels for grinding, cutting, polishing, and buffing should be thoroughly inspected before being used. Tools with exposed moving parts must be equipped with safety guards to protect you from the moving surface and from flying chips or sparks. Since a cracked or defective wheel could accidentally fly apart when used, the safety guards must be strong enough to withstand the impact of a bursting wheel. When using pneumatic and powder-actuated tools, eye protection is required. It's also a good idea to use face protection. OSHA requires that employees receive special training before being allowed to use powder-actuated tools. Before using any tool, make sure all safety catches are working properly. This will prevent accidental firing. Don't drive fasteners into materials that can be easily penetrated unless the material is backed by a substance that will prevent the fastener from completely passing through and becoming a flying hazard. Fasteners should not be driven into hard or brittle materials which might chip, splinter, or cause a ricochet. Never point a compressed air gun or powder-actuated tool at anyone. The muzzle of a powder-actuated tool must have a protective shield or guard on the barrel to contain flying fragments or particles. Whether working with tools or driving a piece of heavy equipment, your safety and the safety of your co-workers is a priority. Increasing your awareness of potential struck by or hit by hazards is a positive step forward in the prevention of serious injuries and deaths while on the job. This awareness, combined with the correct use of personal protective equipment, will not only make the job site safer, but it will make you a better worker. Keep the lines of communication open between workers and supervisors. If you see someone without a hard hat, why not give them a friendly reminder? Teamwork leads to safe work. Struck by, hit by hazards should not be taken lightly. Anything you can do to make you or a co-worker safer goes a long way in reducing on-the-job accidents. Don't become a statistic.